Ladies and gentlemen, today we tip our hats, crank our carbides, and buckle our suspenders, because we're stepping back to an age when cruise control meant the horse didn't kick the buggy and Bluetooth sounded like something that needed a dentist. Let me introduce you to the 1910 Kearns Model G Roadster, a high-wheeled oddball from Pennsylvania that promised you could motor across town without burning your eyebrows off in the process. But before we put-putt into friction drive nostalgia, hit that subscribe button like Timmy trying to crank-start a jalopy with a hangover. Let's rewind to 1910. America was in its early automotive adolescence. Cars were loud, wobbly, and half the country still thought gasoline was something you rubbed on a mule. Kearns wasn't one of your big dogs like Ford or Cadillac. No, they were a boutique outfit from Beavertown, Pennsylvania, the kind of town where a 3-cylinder engine got you invited to the mayor's barbecue. In 1908, Charles Max Kearns rescued the floundering Eureka Motor Buggy Company and reshaped it into the Kearns Motor Buggy Company. Their goal? Build high-wheelers that weren't just converted buggies with an engine strapped on, but purpose-built rural machines for professionals, like doctors who didn't want their spleens rearranged by potholes on the way to a house call. By 1910, the Model G Roadster was their flagship, a deluxe 3-seater high-wheeler targeted at folks with taste and a bit of cash. Kearns pitched it as a high-class alternative to the catalog mail-order specials. And they weren't joking. The company marketed its cars with actual hoods, decorative brass lamps, tufted leather upholstery, and wood-spoked wheels tall enough to wave at giraffes. They produced 117 cars that year, tiny numbers even by brass-era standards. No Ford-level assembly lines here, just hand-built dreams fueled by Pennsylvania optimism and maybe some moonshine. Who designed it? That's still a bit of a mystery. The engine came from Speedwell Motor Car Co. out of Dayton, Ohio, a 3-cylinder, air-cooled 2-stroke marvel rated at a whopping 20 horsepower. That's roughly 1 squirrel less than Timmy's fishing boat, but for 1910, it was pretty solid. Kearns engineered the rest, a friction transmission, chain drive to each rear wheel, and an elegantly crafted high-wheeler chassis. With no radiator up front, because it didn't need one, the Model G still wore a hood just to look modern. That's right, it had fake grille confidence long before it became a thing in the 2020s. The production numbers were small and survival rates even smaller. Most historians agree that very few Model Gs still exist. One restored example, sold by RM Sotheby's in 2019, came with a VIP pedigree, formerly owned by Henry Austin Clark Jr., founder of the Long Island Automotive Museum and one of the godfathers of early car collecting. That car, Chassis 48, proved just how rare and revered the Model G really is. Now let's peek under the hood. The beating heart of this machine was a Speedwell-supplied 3-cylinder 2-stroke engine with deep fin cylinders, the so-called porcupine heads, all bolted onto an aluminium crankcase. Air-cooled, mind you. Not radiator and water-cooled, but fan-assisted with no radiator, just a spinning breeze maker and the hope that Mother Nature chips in. The transmission was a friction drive disc system that adjusted gear ratios by sliding the contact point across a spinning plate. No clutches, no gears, just mechanical ballet. From there, dual chains, one for each rear wheel, did the final driving. Timmy once tried to recreate this in his shed using bike chains, plywood, and a lawn tractor. We're still not sure what exploded. The steering came via a right-hand wheel, which is unusual for the United States, especially when most early cars still used tillers like you were captaining a small pirate ship. And in classic brass-era fashion, the Model G had solar acetylene headlamps powered by an onboard carbide generator. Throw in oil side lamps and a tail lamp and you were lit up like a Christmas goose. Rolling stock? Think circus wagon meets rural chariot. Huge wooden artillery wheels wrapped in hard rubber, perfect for bouncing over rocks, mud, and small farm animals. Suspension was basic. Solid axles with semi-elliptic leaf springs because comfort was secondary to not tipping into a ditch. Braking was mechanical and vague, probably acting on the chains or rear wheels if they were in the mood. And while most cars of the era had a touch of rustic, the Model G flaunted tufted upholstery and brass trim like it just got back from a gentleman's club. As for size and speed, the Kearns didn't leave us blueprints, but we can make educated guesses. Most high-wheelers of this type had a wheelbase between 72 inches and 100 inches, 183 centimeters to 254 centimeters, and weighed about 900 pounds to 1,200 pounds, roughly 400 kilograms to 540 kilograms. Top speed hovered around 20 miles per hour to 25 miles per hour, 32 kilometers per hour to 40 kilometers per hour. What made the Model G special, besides that glorious three-cylinder howl, was an attempt to blend carriage height utility with premium design. Most high-wheelers were crude. Not this one. The G had style, it had substance, and unlike the neighbors who converted actual buggies into motor cars using blacksmith magic and divine intervention, the Kearns was designed from the ground up as a self-respecting automobile. No shame, no hay remnants, just pure early 20th century class on stilts. Inside, if you could call it that. The Model G featured a deep-buttoned leather bench wide enough for three and tufted like the lobby of a Victorian hotel. The steering wheel was mounted on the right, maybe to make rural doctors feel like they were driving back from a fox hunt, who knows. The craftsmanship was exceptional for its type. Everything was solid wood, hammered brass, and oil-soaked purpose. Even the foot controls felt more like piano pedals than automotive mechanisms. In other words, practical, classy, and just eccentric enough that Bob calls it deep-state transportation tech. Compared to its market rivals, the Model G was punching above its weight class. In 1910, Ford's Model T runabout cost $900, only a smidge more than the Kearns at $850, but the T came with an actual production line and Henry Ford's relentless price-cutting machine. By 1911, it dropped to $680, and by 1913, it was just $525. That kind of deflation made life hard for small-scale builders like Kearns, who couldn't undercut prices without selling their socks. And while Ford standardized the future, Kearns celebrated a fading past. Sadly, time was not kind to the high-wheeler. By 1914, Kearns was experimenting with the Lulu cycle car, a tiny contraption that sounded more like a vaudeville act than a transportation revolution. And by 1916, the company stopped building passenger cars entirely. They shifted focus to trucks and fire engines under the Kearns Doogie name and survived well into the 1920s. Fast forward to today, and only a precious few Model Gs remain. The best documented survivor, Chassis 48, went under the hammer at RM Sotheby's in 2019 for $66,000. Not bad for a vehicle that originally sold for $850, equivalent to around $29,000 today, or about 25,000 euros. No one's putting these in shopping malls or Instagram reels, but among brass-era collectors, that's a serious result. Beyond the numbers and gear ratios, the Kearns Model G captures a beautiful contradiction, a vehicle that looks backward and forward at the same time. It had carriage wheels, but modern ambition. A friction transmission and dual chains wrapped in polish and pride. It dared to dream that a buggy could be a luxury item, and for a moment, it succeeded. Thanks again to the beautiful people keeping this channel alive, our heroic sponsors. Now go polish your brass, grease your sprockets, and maybe, just maybe, ride a bit taller today, knowing that once upon a time, the Rolls-Royce of high-wheelers rolled proudly across muddy America.